Hey, what's going on, guys? We don't have Chug today. Chug is my co-host. He's I would say he's on assignment, but he's working on other things right now, and so he's not going to be joining us today. But we'll keep you posted and hopefully join us on the next one. But today we have Brian from Operation RSF. Brian, how's it going? Welcome.
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
man. Thanks for coming on and giving us your time and stuff. But for those of you guys remember Tyler, we had him on the podcast maybe like 6 episodes ago or so, and Operation RSF was a program. And please stop me if I speak out of like if I say some shit that's not true to your program. But it started by three special force members to combat PTSD, like to include anxiety and everything that comes with that, the whole bag of stuff that comes with it. But it's through physical activity, partnering with gyms, challenges, and partnership, and through holding members accountable that actually go to these gyms that are affiliated with Operation RSF. I won't do it the amount of service that it deserves, and that's why we have the expert here, Brian, who's going to help us along with that, and we're also going to get into some other things. So, Brian, if you can tell me a little bit more, Tyler kind of gave us his side of it, but if you can, he had nothing but good things to say about you, and if you can kind of give me your perspective of as far as like your slice of the pie when you guys were talking about it, and then how it's flourished to this point.
Yeah, man. And I'll do my best to follow in Tyler's footsteps. I didn't realize he was on so recently, so I'm sure I got big shoes to fill.
Nah, man, you're good.
But yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head with the mission of Operation RSF. So essentially, we're out there to serve as a catalyst to help people move back to an active lifestyle. I say move back, whether they're just starting one initially or getting back into it. As you're well aware, physical fitness translates in numerous ways to overall emotional health and mental well-being. And our entire goal is to get people connected to these fitness communities to help reinstill a sense of purpose in society with them. So what I do specifically for RSF, I recently took over the CEO position of the organization. Tyler has a much bigger brain than I do, so he's heading up our research and development team. And so, yeah, that's kind of the model we're moving forward with, because while we do place people in these gyms and fitness communities, a huge portion of it also is providing the education to our gym partners to make sure they're as equipped as possible to help people out, and can't do that without a really well-rounded R&D team.
Right, definitely. And Tyler said the same thing about you. So I mean, you guys are just complimenting each other, which is great.
Just feeding off each other.
Yeah, man. There you go. And it makes sense why you guys kind of join together and kind of push forward with it. And the third member, so Tyler hits up R&D. You're hitting up like more of the organization, kind of moving the puppeteer, if you will. And then, I mean, I know you guys are all probably working in hand together and kind of pushing the program where you guys see fit. And the third person, how does he fit in the program, or he or she?
Yeah, so we actually we've had a bit of recent organizational change.
Okay.
So when Tyler initially co-founded RSF, it was with 3 Green Berets out of Fort Bragg. People just kind of had competing interests. I think one guy went off to med school, some other stuff where it's just difficult to keep everything straight, and just prioritization is a real challenge there. So we added Dr. Catherine Page to our research and development team. She's a PhD neurophysiologist that specializes in combat trauma. She's done a lot of research work on behalf of DoD. Liz Brookhouse, who's currently a military mental performance coach. And so Liz, Kate, and Tyler head up the R&D team. We started filling out our board of directors. We added Frances, and she is also working as a director of operations for the Green Beret Foundation. So she brings a ton of nonprofit knowledge to our team that's helped us out significantly. And then my buddy Jeff, who is the chairman of the board now, civilian work within the business world, but within the fitness space. It also helps kind of bring that business-minded philosophy towards RSF. Because, with Tyler and myself, we've been in, the Army for a majority of our professional careers. So, having that well-rounded civilian mentorship there as well is a huge step forward for us.
No, definitely. I mean, just just me starting like this platform or whatever you. I mean, I kind of started initially just to. It was kind of me like trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I separated from not separated. I retired from the military, and I kind of just found mountain biking because I did mountain biking in Germany for like maybe a few rides. I had some people I started with. They were mountain bikers. They invited me. Of course, I was, out of shape, like not in the shape that I am now. I was in shape was like more of a rounder shape.
Right.
I mean, relative to right now, I wasn't huge, but I could still move, but not like today. And so I went on rides. Usually, I was hungover. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, I was just dying the whole time. But I remember how good I felt afterwards, even though I was like dead tired. So fast forward, when I retired, I was like kind of grasping at straws, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And on an impulse buy, I bought a mountain bike. I, you know, and like everything that I've gained from that, through the community of mountain biking as well as you know. Getting plugged in with the Dirt Therapy Project was the program I ride with, and I support, and I try to do whatever I can to use my platform to raise awareness for that program. So it's opened up a lot of doors for me as well as for myself. However, the other aspect of it, because I'm kind of like, this is what I want to do as far as trying to, whether it's use my story or have other people on, is kind of sharing this information of and kind of destigmatizing PTSD, PTS, anxiety, depression, everything that comes with it, meds, all that stuff. I went through about 6 years or so. I was on the PTSD cocktail, if you will,
Yeah.
and at the point that I didn't know what else to do, so I was like, I'm kind of like I don't know what the fuck to do, so fix me, please, And in the hindsight, that was just kind of I'm pretty sure where a lot of people are, where they kind of get to that point, and they're just like, I mean, hope. And that was after an attempt, so it was not like I was just kind of like, hey, help me out, whatever. It was just kind of it took a lot of like things to kind of get me to that point, and I kind of, went in. I was like, I don't want medication, but I'm at the point now, what I'm doing is not working. So I kind of went, luckily for me, I think it was important for me to understand that the pharmaceuticals, the medication at the time was just a band-aid. Cause I didn't want to be on it for long term. And I'm glad that I had that mindset because I have found, and to each his own. I mean, I know everybody's kind of going through their own thing, but some people they end up identifying or making that part of their identity, their diagnosis, and they accept this idea that it's going to be part of their lives forever, and it will be to an extent. I'm not saying that it's ever like going to go away, like the memories or anything, but at the same time, you can do things to help mitigate a lot of the symptoms that you don't realize you're exacerbating by some old, non-healthy habits that kind of lead you down those roads, and before you know it, it's just kind of where it's at. But going back to mountain biking, like it's kind of been that thing for me. So going back to you is one of the things that I'm like kind of at the point now is like, well, do I start turning what I am doing as a veteran advocate and like into a nonprofit in the source of like taking out veterans, or like just, you know, so I kind of started going down those like on what would I offer? What would how like I'm not just gonna start a nonprofit and like have no like plan. So I've
Yeah.
been kind of going down those things because honestly, a lot of the things that I've been doing is like trips I've done and what have you. It's on my own dime, and then that kind of factors in financially for my personal life and family. But if there's a way that I could figure out a way to do that, and it sounds like you guys have, and I'm not saying not for nothing, but it's important that you have that experience of understanding like the business side of the house and being able to um, acquire those assets through donations or what have you and move forward with the program. So like, did you do you guys feel it was challenging like that aspect of it as far as deciding to become a nonprofit and then like start um, asking for donations, because I think that's a big hurdle for me. It's like asking for help, which is ironic. I get it.
Yeah, man, it's a tough thing. I think particularly coming from a military background, like you just get so used to not wanting to ask help for anything. And that's something that we still face as a challenge on a daily basis. We try to help as many people as possible, but it does cost money to keep the lights on, whether that's
Right.
running the website, paying, fees for guys that are printing our apparel, things like that help with advertising and getting your name out there. It all costs something.
Right.
And putting on events, obviously that's another thing that's eating up revenue. So, I mean, I think we did have to, and we're still trying to overcome the hurdle of like not wanting to come across as greedy, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the same time, like trying to generate enough revenue that we can reach people to the best degree possible. We've had a couple of things come up. We've had people be real generous to us. So we actually have an event going on in March in Nashville, where one of the restaurants in downtown Nashville is donating a portion of each plate that they sell to Operation RSF. So it is kind of cool when you see organizations like that reach out that are just genuinely wanting to help a nonprofit organization. And it's even better, you don't have to ask for it in the first place.
Right. And I bet you because even with me, like I don't, and the only way I could tie it back is just my experience, right? I'm not just trying to talk about myself, but at the same time, it's kind of like, even like with the program, the Dirt Therapy Project, like I was asked to be on the race team, and I've been doing that and I really enjoy it. But it's strange, and it's not that I'm not appreciative, but it's strange to get like a jersey that you didn't pay for, and like get all these things, and I'm glad to have them, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's just odd. It's strange, like you said, like it's part of the military thing. We're not used to asking for help, and to get anything for free, it feels like, and it's not like I expect them. You know what I mean? It's just a weird feeling. Even like the very basic thing is like when people, I'm pretty sure you get it all the time, like, thank you for your service. I literally had to consciously think of, like, for a while, like, what do I say back? I mean, I would say thank you, but even that seemed like kind of disingenuous. Like I felt like I needed to see something more thoughtful. But at the same time, it was like, so I just came up with like, I appreciate your support. I mean, that's all I say. It's kind of my canned statement for that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, I mean, I volunteered. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, but at the same time, I can see their side of it, the house as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I have kind of my own like canned statement. Someone says thank you for your service, I'm usually just like, thanks, I enjoy doing it. Something
that's cool
to that effect. But yeah, man, like I totally get what you're saying. Having people that have reached out like, hey, can we send you X, Y, and Z? It feels kind of weird. Like I'm not really used to anyone wanting to just like give me anything. Whether everything in the military, I feel like has been in pursuit of earning something, and I think that value has just been kind of instilled in me. So sometimes like going out and asking for donations and things like that, it's just an odd feeling.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one there. And I didn't think I was, but it's just something that most people don't ever really talk about, at least that I have.
Sure.
So your program is based around physical, not your program. Your all's program is based around physical activity. And I know that kind of like circles around like CrossFit, and that for that reason is because of when I spoke to Tyler, he said that it was because of the like the temp not the template, but the forgive me, but it's a consistent program that you guys can operate off of. Like the movements are all the same, it's all taught in the same way, and things like that. So is that something that you practice yourself as far as like CrossFit, or like what other methods of physical activity do you use to sustain like stress or anything like that?
Man, I have been all over the place with fitness, and I am self-admittedly one of those guys that like I'll find a program, I'll be on it for a while, then I'll see something else, and I'm like, God, that looks badass. Like, let me jump on that for a little bit. So yeah, I did CrossFit for a while, and I kind of now found my sweet spot and home with the Power Athlete programming. with being in the military, it's difficult to find the blend where, like, if you're a lifter and you just want to throw heavy weights around, and it's difficult to find a good blend of allowing you to do that, but also keeping up with the amount of cardio that you need just to not be that guy in the army that can't run.
Right.
So I've kind of found that good blend with Power Athlete. They have a pretty cool community because our whole big thing with fitness also is that it's more than just fitness. It's also welcoming yourself into a new community where you meet people that become part of your social network and support network. A lot of the programming I've been doing has been through virtual networks where you can still go on and interact with people. They have the virtual leaderboard. You can still compete and talk to people, but it's been a good blend between doing that and then also just getting to know people at the gym too. And I think CrossFit has been really good for a lot of the people that have come to RSF because of that social support that it does bring. It's more than just going to work out. It's going to work out with people that hold you accountable and help motivate you. And I think regardless of whatever fitness style you're doing, if you can find that sort of support network, then you're on the right track.
Right. Yeah, and CrossFit, like it definitely, like I got in. I'm the same way. Like I've gone on. I remember it was just this constant like reaching for which program was going to work for me because in high school we played like football and track and baseball, and I only did track because they didn't have enough track people running track, so they were like, "We want to play baseball, you got to do track." So I got in track that way, but that kind of like set me up like for at least the hunger to want to work out or at least have that baseline of physical activity and understand like what it is to push yourself and like what have you. Now, is that like something you guys like struggle with as far as like somebody that's like coming new like to just which is probably not likely because if they're coming from the military then they have some type of you know foundation that they're coming from. So I guess that really wouldn't be that great of a question.
You're good. No, but I think because we'll cater to people outside the military as well if they come to us like seeking help. Obviously fitness is something that everyone can benefit from, not just veterans, but I think a lot of people within the veteran community that once they get out, it's difficult to get back into fitness if you lost it, because I think when you're in the service, like you have to have at least some level of physical fitness just to pass, a PFT.
Right.
But particularly, what I saw within the special operations community is that, if you're weak, then you're already kind of that outsider. Like you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy that people can't rely on physically. Right. And there is a extremely competitive atmosphere where you need to keep up because it's kind of dog eat dog from a fitness aspect. And I say this as somebody that's still in the active service, and I don't want to speak for every single person out there, but I could see how it would be easy that once you transition out of service to put less of a priority within fitness because you're no longer doing it for the benefit of somebody else and your teammates. Right at that point, you're just doing it for yourself. And I'm led to believe that some people think like, okay, well, I don't really need to maintain that high of a level of fitness anymore because my job no longer depends on it. And I think that's a slippery slope where you start taking shortcuts and like, hey, I don't need to go to the gym today. And all of a sudden, that day turns into a few days and then turns into weeks. And before you know it, you're that out of shape guy that you said you'd never be.
Yeah. And I've used that term all the time and it's becoming more prevalent now. Like it's always been prevalent, like with anybody working, especially working out, but also like diet. And I don't like the word diet because it has such a negative connotation on it. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's like, depending on what you throw in your mouth or what you drink is going to affect you both fitness wise. And I'm starting to learn from both personal experience as well as amongst other things, is the mental health aspect of it. Like with the dyes and different things. And I used to, when you kind of eat everything, you never really know what's affecting you. But when you, like I did an elimination diet like maybe like 5 years ago. And at first I was like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like I can eat whatever, I got a iron stomach or whatever people used to say. And then when, maybe it was a little bit longer ago, but when I started to implement those things back in my life into my diet, I started to, like, especially now when I've kind of like understand my body and like how things affect me more. I'm more aware of, like, when I stay away from, let's say, fast food or whatever, and I haven't eaten in a while, and then I go back to it, like, I feel like shit the next day. I have like I just feel off. I feel foggy, and that's something I would have never noticed before because it was just like I felt like that every day. So I mean, what was the difference?
Yeah.
How could I tell what was what? But yeah, so I mean I get that, and then also on the other side of it, especially when people get out of the military, because it's the same answer I kind of get when I talk to either, like, any veteran, especially people that spend a lot of time in the field on deployments. They're just like, man, I did that shit in the military. I ain't gotta do that anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to be outdoors. But from what I found from my personal experience, especially with mountain biking, is like the positive benefits of being outdoors. Like, I mean, it's not just endorphins that you get from it. It's also like just being in nature, and that has its own thing. But more so than that, if we can find a way to um, show the member that it's like on their time and they can do what they want and they are at their own pace and they're not being made to do it, I think they would have more buy-in into it. And I'm not saying that's what your program is not or doing, but it's just kind of one of the things I noticed about it.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the questions you had asked me on the phone was, when we spoke prior to, was like how physical activity like helped me, when I was kind of going through my state or my struggles or what have you. And I remember I was in a hospital with other veterans, in North Texas, and they had like a small gym, there that wasn't great, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like I literally don't have shit else to do. I'm like in this, not for nothing. Like, I made really good friends with a lot of people in there, and I was still in contact with some of them. But a lot of them, not I'll say a lot of them, but some of them kind of just went back to their old lifestyles, which, I try to keep in contact with them. But at the same time, I had to understand that you can only help those that want to help themselves. You know what I mean? And that's a
Yeah.
tough pill to swallow because you want to help them and they're good people, but it's just kind of the reality of it. So when you asked me that question, I started thinking, I answered you, but I was like, that can't be as easy as an answer as that. So I thought about it, and it did help me. It helped me, like, get those, physical, like those endorphins out and make me feel good about myself, kind of get that energy, spend that energy. But it almost felt like I was telling you earlier, I felt like I was in quicksand,
Yeah.
like, or I was doing it, but I was processing other things as well, because when, I don't know if you've been through any programs or know of anybody going through programs, but it's pretty extensive work in the sense of kind of like scraping your memories, your mind, and then having to retell those stories over and over. And I mean, there's a reason for that, but at the same time, it's like it's mentally like there's a reason why a lot of people don't do it is because it's fucking hard. I mean, at least from my personal experience, like, to have to, retell your story, retell it, and then we did it in a group setting, and that was, like, on its own was kind of challenging because you talking about competitiveness, you're around other military members, and some people saw more stuff than the other person, and vice versa. So having to come out and say certain things and, like, kind of like holding your breath to see if you're going to be judged or not, and that never happened. And if it did, like, well, that's a lie. There was one person that, I mean, I'm not talking trash, but he was pretty vocal. But I
Hmm.
mean, everyone's struggling with their own shit, and I didn't really hold anything to him. I just kind of heard him out and just let him do his thing. It wasn't directed at me, but it was just kind of in general, kind of just blowing up or whatever. But I get it too, man, because that in that state, when you have that many people like looking at you and kind of hearing something so personal and you don't really talk about it at all, and then you're having like being forced to say it. Um, I can see why it blew up, in hindsight. But at the same time, like the physical side of the house really helped me in the sense that there was a couple other army guys I was there with, and we started going to the gym. And then I mean, it doesn't matter what rank at the time, but I was at the point where I was like trying to pull other people in, and so was I mean, we're both like senior NCOs, and it wasn't like, hey, follow me. It was more so like, come on, man, let's go. Let's go get some stuff in. And little by little, like people start trickling in, and it made sense at the time, but at the time we really didn't hear it. But some of the therapists that we're working with are like, we can usually tell who's gonna flourish from the program by who actually does physical activity and who doesn't. And I mean, I know what she meant, but I wanted to hear a little bit more. I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she was like, well, it's because the people that actually do the physical activity, they're able to process more information because they have, they're able to expend that energy. They're able to get rid of that stress when other people are choose not to do it. They talk about cortisol levels and all this stuff rising and not be able to, expend, that energy. It just like creates like a more volatile like situation. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But yes, it did help me, and it fast forward has sustained me afterwards. But one of the things I did struggle with, speaking of CrossFit gyms, was afterwards when I tried to go back to CrossFit. And even before, that's not even something I recognized because it took me a while to like come to the understanding like that was in fact like what I was diagnosed with, and it took me a while to accept that was PTSD because I felt like it was like frontline guys. I wasn't a frontline guy. It was stuff I like supported remotely, and I supported them before, and I was like, yeah, you can get the bad guys, whatever. And then some stuff shifted, and different missions shifted, and some stuff I witnessed and partook in as far as support and what have you happened, and I didn't expect to feel that way. That's the way I felt, and I just kind of ate it away, and I was like, no, you don't deserve, to like you shouldn't be telling anybody about this because it's like you're not a frontline guy. Only they get it. You know what I mean? So that was my shit that I had to deal with, and then it came out in a lot of different ways, but I just kind of just never really thought about it. I just drank and drank, and to the point where I ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
But having said all that, when I started going back to the gym, it was some CrossFit gyms can get pretty crowded, and that was one of the things that I would like leave the gym because I got like too frustrated. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? So is that something like some feedback that you hear from like veterans or what have you that go to the gym or anything like, hey man, I can't do this because of this and this? Because you're reminding me of it because the pin access thing you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a couple things I want to mention, and the first one going back to your initial feelings of saying like, hey, I don't necessarily know that I should be feeling like this because I'm not a frontline guy or whatever it may be. I was actually having the exact same conversation with Dr. Pate probably 8 months ago after reading a few articles about people that had served in special operations. They were once of the belief where it's like, hey, I've been out here getting engaged in direct firefights every day for 6 months and I'm fine. Like, why are these people going and claiming PTSD and blah blah blah? And we had a really interesting discussion on that somebody's ability to handle trauma, or I guess the likelihood of developing trauma, is completely based upon essentially what their expectations were. So maybe expectations is the wrong word, but say that Green Beret that goes out there and somebody rattles off, a mag from an AK at a convoy and they return fire and keep on driving. That's something that's their resiliency. And the stress and resiliency is a specific part of training that's developed over years as well. So, the enabler or support kid that's on that same convoy may internalize that completely different than somebody that has had multiple years of resiliency within training, and that's a realistic expectation of their job. So how trauma manifests in somebody is totally non-dependent on what their specific MOS might be. And I think when people start looking at it as, or do not look at it as, my job was harder or more dangerous than yours, therefore your trauma is not warranted, that's a totally incorrect way of looking at that situation, because everyone develops it and deals with it a lot differently. It's not specific to SOF or specific to any one MOS or branch of service. I kind of stumbled over a couple words there. I don't know if that makes total sense.
No, you're good, man. I stumbled over like fucking 40 of them already. So we'll get there eventually, like I always say. No, and I appreciate you telling me that. And I heard that before. Have you ever met Jeff Dardia or talked to
I
him?
haven't.
Okay, he's in Green Beret as well, but I had him on, and we like you and I talked prior to, and I told him the same thing, because I do have these hurdles when I interview somebody, and it's not for nothing, but it's just kind of my own expectations of what I feel I deserve or not deserve, and I'm pretty sure every person is like that, because I do fall into those same traps that most people do. But he was the first one to like let me know that that, and I never looked at it from that perspective. Is like that, and not to say they're like, oh yeah, I do deserve it. No, it's not that. It's just more so like, okay, that makes sense, because for a while it was just kind of like just feeling like I was like fucking pussy, just like like why is this affecting me or anything? And I don't cast judgment on anybody calling them a pussy for going what they're going through. I'm just talking to myself. That's kind of how I like self motivate, if you will, sometimes. However, like he was the first one that kind of let me know like that from that perspective. And I think it's important that, and I'm glad you brought it up now, because whoever's listening to this, and if anybody else is struggling with that same mental barrier that they put on themselves, then hopefully this will resonate with them, and maybe they could go get help, or they could go, just start, accepting that idea differently, and, not view themselves in that manner. But I cut you off, and you're coming up with a second point.
No. But just off of that, I would say for anyone that's listening that might be struggling with whether or not they deserve to feel that way or not, I think it's less of a question of are you deserving, and more of an acknowledgement that there's certain physiological changes that occur when trauma is experienced. So it's not a matter of whether or not you deserve it. It's just a matter of acceptance that something physiologically did happen to you, and it's not any different than sustaining a physical injury. You would get, you would go to a doctor for a broken ankle. Right. Why do we treat mental health any differently?
And I was reading maybe like 8 months ago that it could actually be like physically shown on an MRI, or I don't know about MRI. Maybe we need Doc Pate on here to like help us walk through this, but it is like it can be shown on images, like whether or not not to say whether or not trauma happened, but there is like proof of it, like in that sense. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, that not only is it, so I mean technically it's invisible to the naked eye, but it's not really invisible if you know where to look and how to look, if that makes sense. Maybe you can correct me on that, but I mean I did read research on that, how there's a certain shape or something in the brain waves. I don't know brain waves, but yeah, maybe I'm kind of talking out of my job jar, so maybe I shut up real quick.
You're good. If I could comment on it, then I would.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if I could, I'd have to call up Doc Pate and get her.
I'm supposed to have her on in March, so I have her on back again. I had her on maybe like 10 episodes, 12 maybe, and she was awesome. I really enjoyed having her on, and it was just like we needed more time to kind of unravel a lot more questions that I had, and she's an awesome person. I'm really glad she's working with you guys. I'm pretty sure she's going to do great things for your program.
Oh yeah, man. We'll jot down any roadblocks you run into on this podcast. Ask her down the road.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely take notes of it, and hopefully I don't forget. But like I was saying, so how is fitness, like when did fitness come in your life? Like when did it become like, all right, this is no kidding, this needs to be part of my life, as opposed to just playing sports as a kid, you know what I mean? Or it could be one and the same. Like when did that become relevant, and like I need to, but I'm going to work out and I enjoy working out and this is going to be part of my life. When did that, become apparent to you?
I don't really think it was until the military. I grew up playing sports. Baseball is my main sport.
Position.
Working out. So I was a pitcher and a second baseman.
Nice.
Yeah, man. And like, I guess working out was just something I did that was part of, being on the baseball team. But at the end of the day, I really just wanted to go out to the field and, hit baseballs. I didn't really care that much about working out, which, looking back on it now that I'm in my 30s, that was pretty dumb because I could have been a much better baseball player if I actually took lifting seriously at the time.
No, yeah, definitely.
But I think once I got into the military, so I went to college on ROTC scholarship. The baseball workouts, I was used to running 90 feet to first base. And like the first day out there, we did something like that seems short now, like a 3-mile run, not even for time or whatnot. And I about fucking died. It's just like, holy shit, I have to change the way I'm looking at fitness if I'm gonna be in an organization that values running, because that was not me. I've always been somebody that likes to lift. If something goes with my fitness, running is like the first thing. But really, as I got better and better at it, I saw the effects that it had on me. Not only was not only was I feeling and looking better, but I also noticed that I was much sharper. So if I had a test or something that day, I would still prioritize getting up and going to the gym before going to class, because I always felt that the clarity that I had, after, a tough workout was something that I wouldn't necessarily get if I was, getting up and cramming for the test. I'd always do worse if I took that approach rather than taking some time to clear my head, de-stress. And I don't think I really understood it or knew it at the time. I just knew it made me feel better. And that's really where I got my start and been kind of running with it ever since.
And what age was that?
So I would have been like 20, 21 at the time when I was really getting into it.
Nice.
Started, signed up with the RTC program when I was 18 and ran and went to PT and all that. But I don't think I really fully started understanding, all the other benefits that fitness has outside of just, the physical attributes.
I wonder if we would actually look at it different, like as a kid, maybe not, but like if they were to actually give us all the information and maybe it wasn't as understood as it is now, but like if we were to like actually sit down, because I try to do that with like my kids, is I try to like lay out how it benefits them and why it benefits them, and like this is what it's gonna kind of set you up for if this is what you want to do, and this is what it'll keep you from if you choose to kind of just do nothing. You know what I mean? So I try to like do that, and I wonder if at that age, probably not. I was a knucklehead, I thought I knew everything, you know what I mean? I always say when I was young and dumb, like maybe if they would have given me all the information, because I think of it the same way with you, is if I would have known, if I would have understood like the way I understand like how these, positive, coping mechanisms will help you in the long run, whether sports, and doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, it will make you a better, make you perform better in that whatever sport that is. But I don't know if I would have resonated with me just because, or if I would have accepted that idea because I thought I knew everything for whatever reason. And like I said, so how many? I know you guys partner with CrossFit gyms, and
yeah,
like, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how has that model changed at all as far as how you guys are? Like, if a gym were to contact you today and they were to ask you, like, "Hey, I'm interested in your program," I know there's like no membership fee for the gyms and what have you, but do you guys give them like a training regimen or like something like to work off of, or like how does that process? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, man, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. So we are right in the middle of creating an online certification course that Liz, Kate, and Tyler are working on. Once that's complete, that'll be the standard that all affiliate gyms need to uphold. So what that's going to walk them through is they can do it at their own pace, but it's going to take them through just, what is post-traumatic stress, what is depression, anxiety, et cetera. So they have a basic understanding of what each one is and what it's not, because I think that there's still there's still a lot of stigma associated with, what exactly post-traumatic stress is, because
Right.
people think that that person's going to be, violent or unreliable or whatnot, and it's obviously not
Right.
it whatsoever. So the purpose destigmatizing, what the mental health issue is, and then going through the certification of exactly how physical fitness assists with that, and how you as a gym owner or coach can assist as well. So that'll be what we have to maintain for each partner. We've actually somewhat expanded our partnership options. So a majority of our partners are CrossFit gyms. However, we've started adding yoga studios, and then
Nice.
particularly in light of all the social isolation and gym shutdowns, individual personal trainers as well, because a lot of the gyms were shut down just due to overall closures with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Some trainers have been able to maintain, a portion of their client basis. So there is still opportunity there for people to reach out through the fitness community, even if the gym shut down. So that's why we kind of looked at expanding some of the options for partnership.
Nice. So how have you like been holding up with all this, isolation and stuff? Are you staying like pretty like did some of the gyms that you go to like on base, are they like shut down too, or like you just got to work out at the house, or how does that work out?
Yeah. Overall, yeah, I was pretty fortunate. The group gym shut down for a little while, and then they started, counting each individual person as you came back in, and keeping you under a certain number. But while we were just staying at home, I actually kind of enjoyed the type of workouts I was doing. I hopped on a program called CrossFit. They're just a online, Instagram military fitness site. They're actually a nonprofit that they donate to a charity each month, which is it's really cool. But they had a really good at-home fitness program you could do, and all it required was some kettlebells, some resistance bands, and a pair of running shoes.
Nice.
And it was actually kind of a different approach to fitness that I really never did or wanted to do, because I was always into lifting heavy, but it kind of forced me to get outside. And I found myself, working out at a park versus a gym. And I found unexpectedly that I really enjoy just the outside nature of fitness, whether it was hanging some rings from a tree branch and getting a quick workout in and going on a run. Was not something that I was really used to doing, but I found it to be really gratifying to be out there and get connected with something outdoors rather than being locked in the gym all the time. So it was kind of a different approach, but one I'm thankful for.
No, yeah, and that's talking about that earlier is kind of like, I know it sounds very hippie-ish and stuff, like, being reconnected with nature, but really and truly, if we understand what we are, as like and how we exist, and like it's almost like humans feel like and I say that like I'm not a human, but I'm just speaking in generalities, like that we're not a part of this world, like we're like external from it, on some level. I don't want to say everyone, but a good amount of like our society, maybe in just the United States, because like if you go to other countries and stuff like that, like in Germany, that everyone's always outside. They're kind of a little bit more connected with, and in like Sweden and other countries. But maybe it's just a United States thing, or maybe but it when you mention like being outdoors, a lot of people kind of cringe at it. It's kind of like, oh no, not me. I'm a more of an indoors person. And but on some level, like there is, I think once, especially when Corona hit and all this stuff, like and everything happened, when people that created, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, maybe you are, but that created like a bike boom as well as a outdoor boom as far as like camping, fishing, anything, because that was one of the things you could do is you
Yeah.
couldn't go anywhere, but you could go outdoors, you could travel, go biking or whatever outside, and that was one of the things that was not off limits. So it didn't really affect me in that way because I was already riding, so I just hit my local trails and I would just keep my distance from everyone and do my own thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I did pick up those things, and like I take my dog Lotus out on the trails and the walks and the creek bed and stuff like that. And I just like being out there and just kind of just being on like just us, you know what I mean? and it just kind of puts me in a different state where I come back and I can do whatever it's just in a different place, kind of like what you were talking about working out in the morning, and you just kind of like just focus differently. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not as an extreme physical activity as like, a race or mountain biking or even a CrossFit workout or a row or assault bike, but it still has a lot of the same benefits from it. Excuse me. So I'm glad I mean, it sucks that it had to come to that for you to kind of get outside and realize that. But at the same time, I'm glad you kind of make that, connection for yourself. And, I'm pretty sure it paid dividends, going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the things I like about y'all's Instagram page is the quotes that you guys do. And
Yeah.
one of the more recent ones is one that it was, quotes like love the process. And I know we talked a little bit about before, but if you can kind of get into like what your perspective is on the process, and I'll kind of go into my side and go from there.
Yeah. So just a little background. So I went to the University of Alabama, like huge Alabama fan. I always heard
Road
Nick Saban.
Tide.
Yeah, roll tide, man. But
Yeah, I
always
had a
heard
guy on my team that was a Bama fan. That's all I ever heard.
we're
Anywhere
all
we
over
went, Road
we're all over
Tide.
the place.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I always heard, Nick Saban talking about the process. I never really understood what that was, and I started doing more and more research. The basic premise is that we live in a very outcome-based society, and while that's a good thing because it helps you establish goals, it can also kind of detract you from them when you become so focused on an outcome that's so far down the road that sometimes it's seemingly impossible to get to, and you kind of ignore the day-to-day grind while you're completely focused on that outcome. So the process would be finding joy in the everyday struggle that accompanies that. So it's not so much about being totally wrapped around the axle of like, hey, I have to get to this weight or I have to lift X amount of pounds. It's about finding satisfaction and the discipline that it takes to get there. It's kind of in knowing that if you go to the gym, that you can take an honest look at yourself and say, did I really give my best effort today? Or if I didn't, then I'm going to go back tomorrow and I'm going to give it 100% of what I got. It's understanding that it's not something that's going to be flashy or outwardly recognizable to a lot of people, what you're doing on a daily basis. But it's really just the discipline and finding joy in the struggle and doing something each day that most people won't. I think when you find joy in that process and gratification in that, then it's a really powerful thing towards accomplishing that specific outcome. Because if you put in the work every day, the outcome's going to get there. But you know what? When you achieve that goal, you're going to enjoy it for a brief second, and you're going to set the next one, and the process begins again.
Right. No, and I love that. And as I was telling you, like I did have a conversation with my wife about that. Because in like the stuff that I'm trying to do, raise awareness for suicide, and kind of share my story, to the extent that I need to, and then talking with people and folks like from, just different places. I'm not saying I just kind of go out and talk to people like, hey, you want to hear my story? No, it's more so like if it comes up, it comes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and um, but having said that, have there are some people that just want like they're not aware of like how much you have to buy into it, and like in the sense of because you're doing it for yourself, right? And that sounds cliche as hell. It's kind of like, oh, do it for yourself. But at the end of the day, like when I first started to understand that I needed to like change something, I couldn't do it for myself because I wasn't in a place to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
know somebody asked me that. Somebody asked me that. Well, what could you tell somebody that's going through, that like thoughts of suicide or whatever? Like what could have someone have told you that would have helped you come out of it? And they're like, would you say do it for yourself? And I was like, no, because in the place I was, I couldn't do shit for myself. You know what I mean? Like I could operate at work, and I got really good at hiding it, and like because it's mission, right? Mission first, do it, put the face on, blah blah blah, talk, smile with people, and then when I come home, it was just like something else. But at the same time, like and there was times at work I had to like excuse myself. I didn't run out or nothing, but one of the restroom, got to go collect myself, come back, whatever. But I told like what I would tell people from now, like kind of having a time to look at it and what have you, is like if you can't do it for yourself, do it for somebody else at least first. You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
I always use the metaphor like you're in a hole and you're trying to climb out of the hole, try to grab onto something, you know, and that something could be, I don't know, your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, your best friend, your dog, your fish, whatever, something you love, and then just try to use that and understand that this person or thing will fail you because it's not, you know what I mean? You're asking a lot for
Yeah.
someone to take on that responsibility and never fuck up because they're human or they're a dog or whatever. They're gonna mess up. They're not gonna meet your expectations. So as long as you can go in with that understanding and understand like, hey, you know, this is a temporary rung, but I'm just using it to kind of get a little bit higher, and then eventually it'll come to you where you start doing stuff for yourself. So you can kind of start looking out of that hole a little bit and see where you need to go or where things are. But having said all that, like there are, speaking of outcome based society, there are some folks that just want the end and don't want to. I don't want to say they don't want to do the work, but if I believe there's a misunderstanding that when you go through, and applies to everything, if you're trying to like lift weights or you're trying to be an Olympian or whatever, or if you're trying to just better yourself mentally, it's a continuous process. Like, and if you don't know those tools, then you go to a coach, you go to Operation RSF, and like, hey, I want to work my way out of it. Like, and they're just you guys are. I mean, no offense, and don't get stuck on the word tool, but there is a tool for them to kind of be in a better place, and then they can sustain themselves, just like therapy is, just like the tools they teach you. But even if you could be the best teacher in the world, you can teach people how to do these things, but if they leave the program and don't use those tools and they kind of just fall back to where they're at, then you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just this continuous the process, right? It's this continuous, like each day when you fuck up, like telling yourself, hey man, you fucked up. Even if you're in the wrong, like if I've gotten arguments before, even recently, and I'll go back, like, you know what, I fucked up. That's my fault. I'm sorry. That's my bad. And I try to correct it going forward. But if you don't continually do that and you just keep eating your own stuff, and just like are stubborn and don't want to admit that you are fallible too, like anybody else, then you'll kind of be creating those stress, those cortisol levels keep rising, and if you don't work out, those things. So my point is that, like, just because you learn the tools, like you have to understand that even after you leave the hospital, even after you leave that program, even after you like, all the bubble of the protection is kind of like surrounding you in that place. When you leave that's one of the hardest things that most people I don't think talk about is, shit, what do I do afterwards? I don't have a therapist here to like talk me through stuff, or I don't have this, or I don't have my friend here and my boy or whatever, because they go back to their families. So you have to learn to sustain yourself. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do. But if you can understand and start applying those tools and start, I'm not saying write in a journal, if you can do that, then badass, more power to you. But if you can start like being aware of what the symptoms are, what the signs are, and for yourself, because they're different for everyone, I feel, then you can start to get to that goalpost. I actually wrote something on Instagram with regards to goalposts. It's funny you mentioned the coach from Alabama. I lost his name. I know it because I heard
Yeah.
it all
Nick
the
Saban.
time. Nick Saban, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the process, right? And if you can, like, that's what I talked about. Like, a lot of people they just see the end zone and they want to get there already, but they don't understand. Like, I use the metaphor of football just because that's what I had in my mind at the time. But they don't understand, like, you have to get through, like, there's obstacles in the way. You have to keep pushing, fighting to get to that end zone. Because if you just got to the end zone all the time with no work, would you really appreciate it? Would you really accept those ideas for yourself and, like, try to be a better person and keep moving forward if you just kind of always got everything handed to you? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. In listening to Saban describe it, he does a much better job than I do. But his philosophy of the process was like, just like you were saying, the end zone is the overall goal, but your thought on every single play is, I'm going to do the absolute best I can on this one play, and I'm going to make the other dude quit. And like if you do that every single play, the end zone takes care of itself.
Right.
So that's kind of the philosophy with fitness, and how I think of the process is that if I go in there and grind every day, like I'm going to have some really good days and I have some terrible days. It doesn't matter, because if I can be honest with myself saying that like today I gave my best effort, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm not going to go backwards. It doesn't mean that every day is going to be great and you're just going to make leaps and bounds as far as progress. But those incremental changes on a daily basis add up exponentially over time, and you're going to eventually get to where you want to get to.
Right. And it kind of, when you say that, you ever see, I'm probably dating myself here, but you ever seen a movie called, it's with Bill Murray, damn it. But it would escape me. But there's a part where he's talking about baby steps. And that's kind of like the word it's just like one foot in front of the other, it's like, I've read a lot with, I've had friends that were with special forces, and they talk about like the people that usually don't make training is the ones that think too far ahead, and they don't like stay focused on the goal, the task right now, and just kind of like just step by step, do what they tell you right now. Don't think about, because when you start getting too far ahead of yourself, then you kind of start losing sight of what's going on right now, and then that one thing leads to another, and it just kind of keeps multiplying. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, it makes sense to me. Just kind of keep your world small.
Oh no, dude. When I was a student in Ranger School, I saw so many people quit that could not fathom the fact that it was 61 days, at a minimum, assuming you didn't recycle, because the days would just get so shitty that they're like, I can't do this for 2 months. And the people that were successful were like, hey, I don't know if I can do this for 2 months, but I can at least walk up this fucking mountain one more time. And then you reset the next day. And every day you're like, hey, I can at least finish this patrol and get in my sleeping bag. And before you know it, it adds up, and you're at graduation. And I think it's a similar philosophy that we try to apply with RSF, because we have 4 and 10-week challenges for participants, and really that's just asking somebody to come in and devote a few days a week for a certain amount of time to either like aerobic activity or some sort of resistance training. And people look at it initially that have maybe gotten into a sedentary lifestyle, like 10 weeks. I don't know if I can commit to that. And it's like, okay, well, commit to it, but today commit to doing that 45 minutes of aerobic activity, and then tomorrow commit to that again. Stop thinking about it in a 10-week time span that seems insurmountable, where everyone has 24 hours in a day. You can move for 30, 40 minutes and build that into your schedule. And before you know it, the days add up, the weeks add up, and you're at the end.
I smiled when you said that, because you beat me to my next question, or my next point was the challenges you guys do. What type of feedback do you guys hear from that? Like, like, were there any? I'm pretty sure there's more than a few that have been like, dude, I didn't think I was gonna be able to do this, but I'm glad, that I stuck with it, or what have you. Like, what is like probably one of the most amazing stories you guys have heard, from feedback from your program?
Yeah. So with the challenges, we try to have somebody act as an accountability partner for that person that is, taking their steps into fitness.
Is that like a coach, or is it like
I wouldn't necessarily call it a coach, but it's if you don't have that kind of gym support structure already, it just adds kind of like somebody that helps keep you on track. They can't do the work for you. Everyone's got to have the individual intents within themselves to do it if they're going to follow through with it. But they are there when if things get kind of rough, that they can kind of offer you that accountability and support. I personally have served as an accountability partner for a couple people that are doing the challenge, and for people that are really struggling, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do to just have a drastic lifestyle change like that. And I think one particular instance that steps out, or that kind of stands out to me, was somebody that was like, hey, didn't think I could do it. Went home, poured a drink, was feeling really weak, and came back as an accountability partner and got that kind of motivation. So dumped that shit out and put a ruck on it and stepped off.
Right.
And I think that's really like kind of where the value of that accountability comes with, is that if you know somebody else is relying on you to accomplish something, then it may be easier at times to give up on yourself before you want to disappoint somebody else. And that's really what we help try to implement for people that are taking their initial steps.
And no, that sounds like awesome. Like I remember I was watching something a while back, and that was one of the things. I forgot what the instructor's name was. I'm horrible at trying to remember names today or movies titles, but
Okay.
that was one of the things that it was through the course of like CrossFit. It was only like 6 years ago, but the instructor, that's what he was having him do. He had one of them. Granted, this is a bit different, but it was the same concept. Like you're depending on somebody else, so like each person had to throw like sandbags over, but while one person was throwing like 100-pound sandbag or something over, his partner was holding a plank position or something, like something crazy. But the goal, the trick was exactly that. Somebody's depending on you, so you're going to push harder because you're thinking about the person next to you, as opposed to, hey, it's just me. You know what I mean? So I'm not really failing anybody except myself, and that's on me. That's kind of. But yeah, I really like that idea. Who does your programming?
So, yeah, Tyler put together the 4 and 10 week challenges, and it's less about the actual physical nature of the programming and more of the science behind how long it takes to develop an intent into a habit.
Got you.
So there is freedom there. So, like, if say somebody goes to one of our affiliated gyms, they don't necessarily have to do RSF programming per se. The time standards that they commit to, and the certain amount of days a week, is still the same. So say I sign up for the 10-week challenge, and that first week I've committed to 3 days of physical activity. I can go to that CrossFit gym and I can do whatever WOD they're doing. I'm just making sure that I have those 3 days of activity. And so it's pretty versatile towards whatever type of fitness that you're into. It's a matter of just putting in the amount of time to actually build that intent into a habit.
So I wonder if I could do one of y'all's 10-week programs. And like I have my own gym here, but just because it's one thing like for me like to talk about this shit, but it's another thing like, and if a program like yours, and not saying like, but not for nothing, but if I could use, you know, have more of an understanding of how it works, what have you, you know what I mean? I could probably like, be in better places, like tell others about it. So I
Yeah.
wonder like if there's a program, maybe I could follow you guys or something, or like one of the programs you give out and I do it here, and then I do like updates or whatever. I'm saying this because I want to hold myself accountable. And if I say it on here, then you know what I mean. I can't bullshit my way out of it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
kind of my own way of holding myself accountable and kind of like put up or shut up. What is it? Put up, get up
Put
or
up or
shut
shut
up.
up. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Maybe I could throw something my way and I'll start doing it. Because I know I've been slacking lately. I got a race in March that I need to get ready for, and the last race I did there, it was at Camp Eagle, which is in Rock Springs, Texas. I only
Okay.
did eight stages, and I was fucking dying. The first day, I think I ate well. I don't think I was in the proper fitness that I thought I should have been in, but it was a lot of hiking and a lot of biking, and I was literally having to carry my bike up. It didn't help that we got rained on, and here in Texas, I don't know what it's like wherever whatever state you're at, but the mud here is like clay, and it just like stuck to the bike. The wheels wouldn't turn or nothing, so I was like literally picking up my bike and walking and slipping, and I was questioning. I made a video about it, but I was questioning on my way up, like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you trying to prove? You're already done. Like, like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed putting myself through that. And then my dumbass raced pro too. And I only been
Oh,
racing, I
yeah.
mean, I only been riding for like 2 years. So it was another thing that I enjoyed that, like, in retrospect, because there was a lot of uh, mental things that came up, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? You suck. Like, like all these things, like all the demons started coming up, but I fought through it, and like I was glad I did it. And I'm like, now when I race, I'm like, well, I know it's not like that. I'm not like, so I've learned a lot from that. And then I've been working on a lot of breathing, nasal breathing, doing the not the different gears of breathing. I kind of picked up from a guy named Brian McKenzie on Instagram.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman, I've been following him, trying to work on my breathing cadences. I still do it now, and it helps out quite a bit, especially when I work out. When I work out, I try to do all nasal breathing. And then even like right now talking to you, I'm trying not to mouth breathe as much, especially when it comes over the mic. I'm like, it sounds like a freaking stalker, But no,
Yeah, I've been trying to get more into that. That's something that I've been pretty like negligent and deficient on as far as fitness goes, of just practicing the overall, mindfulness and breathing techniques. I've always just been kind of like go smash and just try to lift as many weights as possible. But now that I've been learning more and more, and talking to breathwork coaches out there and kind of understanding the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system and how that translates towards recovery and how breathing can actually affect that. It's something I'm really interested in and certainly want to learn more about.
Somebody I want to have on here, and I had a first responder on here. He was a sheriff in Colorado, or deputy sheriff in Colorado, and he's kind of going down the same path as I guess, like trying to raise awareness for PTSD within the Leo community. Mm-hmm. And one of the names he threw out, he was trying to put me in contact with, and was one of the reasons I was going to go to Colorado. I was going to meet up with Doc Pate and a few others, because like I said, I like to talk to people face to face and kind of start building those connections. But it was Emily Hightower. I wanted to get in contact with her and have her on the podcast and try to get more learning. More learning. You know what I mean? So just get her on and try to bring that, information to, the platform or what have you. And more so for myself, I'm being selfish, just because I'm naturally curious on these things. And I really want to try to better myself and try to, understand them more, on a deeper level. Like I understand the concept of them, and I've heard some of the podcasts where she's talked about, something breathing. Naruto. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sounds vaguely familiar. I'd have to look it up, man.
Yeah, and something Nidra. I'm gonna have to cut this part out. So, no yeah, Nur Nidra. I believe that's what it's called. And she talks about the breath work and what have you. And so, yeah, I want to have her on and talk about that. But if people were like, if other gyms wanted to get in contact with you and wanted to get involved with your program, were you looking it up?
I was trying to. I don't even know if I'm. Oh yeah, breathing techniques for health. Nidra Gabriel. Is that it?
I don't know about Gabriel, but I know it's Nidra. And
yeah, I wonder if that's the same person.
But her name is Emily Hightower. She's I believe she's with On It, or I was gonna say Invictus, but I don't think it's Invictus. But either way, like, so those are things I've been implementing into my, like, doing like the breath work and stuff. And I kind of got away from it for a little bit, but I really try to consciously do it every day when I'm either walking or running or cooking or whatever I'm doing. And it does help. It does help.
Yeah, man. One gym I was going to bring up, it's actually ran by a guy that used to be over in 5th group. He's like a CrossFit level 2 now, but he kind of specializes in not just fitness, but mindfulness. So just kind of while we're talking about these other sorts of practices, I thought it was a really cool concept. But a dude named Bill that runs a gym called Between the Ears. Mm-hmm. And kind of like we were talking about the process earlier, he recognizes that CrossFit and society in general is very much outcome based. He's combined fitness with journaling and mindfulness. So like they'll have some soul crusher workout, but then you sit down at the end of it and you kind of have like a moment of self-reflection where he goes through some guided practices of, hey, this isn't for anyone else to hear about. It is not spoken out loud, but like, hey, try to answer these questions for yourself. Like, did I give my absolute best effort today, or was it 75% or half-assed? And just kind of offering that, Yeah, but just kind of offering that moment of introspection within fitness that's more than just a score you put up there on the whiteboard. And he's trying to help people grow, not just physically, but also kind of having more of a greater self-awareness, to start looking at themselves internally and saying like, hey, if I had never thought about this, I never would have realized that I really probably wasn't giving 100% of my best effort. And, how does that translate to other avenues in your life as well? And I thought that was kind of a cool approach for a gym, because I see stuff like that online, but I've never seen anyone actually using that as their business model in a brick and mortar gym.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of a cool concept, and somebody that we've been talking to a lot lately.
That is cool. And it sounds awesome. I would love to have him on to kind of get a little bit more like of his the way he kind of came to that, and like the results that come from that. Especially like there's a CrossFit gym here that I used to go to, but I stopped going. Just because, I think it was financially, and then too, like I was just kind of like, it wasn't like really, like I just needed to do. It's kind of like you were talking about, where you see all these other things, and like as far as working out, and you start doing all those, and it's just kind of this constant like evolution of, I don't know, of finding different activities to kind of stay engaged with. But I did that one for a while. That's one thing they started to do. I don't know about the mindfulness aspect, but I know they started implementing like yoga. They started implementing like different stretches, different. So I wouldn't doubt that they went down that path. And it's actually run by a veteran as well. I believe they're both veterans. Anywho, but I was gonna have him on the podcast, maybe the next episode or so, and I was gonna try to link you guys up and see if that was something he was interested in, and maybe like create like a chapter over here as well. But he's a really good dude. He's funny, not to say that funny people make good dudes, but he's a pretty cool dude.
I hear you. Yeah, happy to link up.
Yeah, man. So if people wanted to get in contact with you, or how would they go about doing that? What forms of like social media do you guys? I know you guys are on Instagram, but if you can kind of just tell people where to reach you, your website, and then any other points of contact that you may want to share.
Yeah, for sure. So www.operationrsf.org is our website. There's somewhere on there that you can contact us through the site. Instagram is the biggest social media platform that we use. So you can also just shoot us a DM there. We have Twitter and Facebook. Can't promise how long it'll take me to respond to a Twitter message, because I hardly ever get on it.
Right.
But Instagram, I'm pretty quick. And then the website will go directly to our email. If you don't go through the website, you can also just email info@operationrsf.org. And between the email, the website, and Instagram, we'll get back to you really quickly if you're interested about partnership, or really any questions, concerns you have about the organization.
Awesome, man. Well, unless you got something for me, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. I hope to have you on again. Maybe you can share with us, where the program is at, how it's shifted, what your future plans are for at that time, and just kind of try to, bring more awareness to whatever latest things you guys are working on. Especially you have Tyler and Doc Payton and all them, creating some probably awesome plan that they're going to push out. So I look forward to hearing about that.
Oh yeah, dude. We'll have to do a part 2. We've definitely got some stuff in the works right now that we're not ready to unveil yet until it's all solidified, and we know 100% that we're going forward with it. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed being on this podcast, and would love to come back for a part 2.
Yeah, man, badass. We love to have you, and I say we, but me, I would love to have you, and maybe Chuck will be with us next time. But yeah, we just try to keep it chill, just kind of let things flow as they go, and then maybe next time we can kind of let it go a little bit more, and then this kind of just like an intro jump off, introducing you, and then go from there.
Yeah, man, let's do it.